Obinna, she said one evening as they sat by the fire. You must keep your gift hidden from the others. But try as he might, Obinna couldn't always control his gift. Once upon a time, in a small village in Nigeria, there lived a kind widow named Adanna and a son, Obinna. They lived in a cozy little house made of mud and thatch, surrounded by tall palm trees and fields of grain. Adanna was a hard-working woman, always tending to her crops and taking care of Obinna with love and care. Obinna was a curious boy with big bright eyes and a smile that could light up the darkest night. But Obinna was special. He had a gift that set him apart from the other children in the village. He could see things before they happened. It was like he had a little voice inside his head that whispered secrets about the future to him. One day, when Obinna was helping his mother in the fields, he suddenly stopped and pointed up at the sky. "Mama," he said, his voice filled with urgency. "There'll be no rain for many moons. We must store food and water." Adanna was surprised by her son's words, but she trusted him. So, together, they gathered as much food and water as they could and stored it safely away. Sure enough, as Obinna has predicted, the rains did not come. The days grew hotter and the fields dried up. But thanks to Obinna's foresight, they had enough food and water to last them through the drought. As words of Obinna's gift spread through the village, people began to whisper and stare whenever he passed by. Some were amazed by his abilities, while others were afraid of what they didn't understand. Adanna knew that not everyone would see Obinna's gift as a blessing. She had seen how fear and jealousy could turn people against each other, and she feared for her son's safety. "Obinna," she said one evening as they sat by the fire, "you must keep your gift hidden from the others." But try as he might, Obinna couldn't always control his gift. Sometimes it would slip out without him even realizing it. Like the time he warned the village about a fire that was about to break out in the marketplace. Or the time he saved a child from drowning in the river. Each time Obinna's gift was revealed, the villagers grew more and more intrigued, but also more afraid. They whispered behind his back, casting suspicious glances in his direction. Adanna watched with a heavy heart as her son struggled to fit in with the other children. She knew that his gift made him different, and she worried that he will never be accepted by the village. But despite the whispers and stares, Obinna remained true to himself. He continued to help his mother in the fields, to play with the other children, and to smile his big bright smile. And slowly but surely, the villagers began to see Obinna for who he truly was, a kind and generous boy with a heart of gold. They realized that his gift was not something to be feared, but something to be celebrated. And so, in the end, Obinna's gift brought the village together, uniting them in a way that they had never been before. As they danced and sang under the light of the moon, Adanna knew that her son's gift was truly a blessing, not just for her family, but for the entire village. After Obinna's gift of foresight had become known throughout the village, something unexpected happened. The news of Obinna's special ability traveled far and wide. reaching the ears of King Ikemefuna, who ruled over the land with great ambition. King Ikemefuna was a powerful ruler, always looking for ways to strengthen his kingdom and expand his influence. When he heard about Obinna's gift, he saw it as an opportunity to further his own goals. One day, messengers from the palace arrived at Adanna's humble home. They brought with them gifts of food and riches sent by the king himself. But Adanna, wise as she was, knew that these gifts came with strings attached. "My son is not for sale," she declared firmly, turning away the messengers and their offerings. She knew that King Ikemefuna's interest in Obinna could only lead to trouble. But the king was not so easily deterred. He sent word to Adanna once again, this time with a threat. If she refused to send Obinna to the palace, she would never see him again. Adanna was torn. She loved her son more than anything in the world, and the thought of being separated from him filled her with dread. But she also knew that she couldn't stand in the way of the king's power. With a heavy heart, Adanna reluctantly agreed to send Obinna to the palace. She held him tight, tears streaming down her face as she whispered words of love and protection into his ear. Obinna was confused and scared. He didn't understand why his mother was sending him away or what awaited him at the palace. But he trusted his mother, and he knew that she would never do anything to harm him. As they traveled to the palace, Obinna couldn't shake the feeling of unease that gnawed at him. He clung to his mother's hand, seeking comfort in her presence. But he could sense her own fear and uncertainty. When they finally arrived at the palace, Obinna was ushered into the throne room to meet King Ikemefuna. The king was an imposing figure with a stern expression and a commanding presence.
"Welcome, young man,"
the king said, his voice booming through the grand hall.
"I have heard of your remarkable gifts, and I believe that you can be of great service to me and to our kingdom."
Obinna didn't know what to say. He had never been in the presence of royalty before, and he felt small and insignificant compared to the mighty king who sat upon the throne. But King Ikemefuna wasted no time in getting to the point. He wanted Obinna to use his gift of foresight to help him make important decisions and avoid potential dangers. At first, Obinna was hesitant. He didn't want to be used as a tool for the king's ambitions, nor did he fully understand the extent of his own powers. But as the king's advisors whispered in his ears, and his mother's tearful face flashed before his eyes, he realized that he had no choice but to comply. And so, reluctantly, Obinna agreed to serve the king, his heart heavy with the weight of his decision. Little did he know that his journey was only just beginning, and that the road ahead would be fraught with danger and uncertainty. But for now, all he could do was to hold on to hope and trust that his mother's love will guide him through the darkness. After Obinna arrived at the palace, things changed a lot for him. The palace was big and shiny, and servants running around everywhere. They gave Obinna fancy clothes to wear and delicious food to eat. But even with all these luxuries, he felt a heaviness in his heart. Obinna missed his mother terribly. He couldn't understand why she had sent him away to live with the king. He remembered the tears in her eyes as she hugged him goodbye, and it made him sad. But as days passed, Obinna realized that he had to make the best of his new life. The king promised to protect him and his mother, and Obinna felt like he had no choice but to agree to help the king with his visions. Using his gifts, Obinna started to see things that others couldn't. He saw dangers lurking in dark corners of the palace, and he warned the king about them. He also saw threats from neighboring kingdoms, and he helped the king come up with strategies to defeat them. At first, Obinna thought he was doing the right thing. He believed that he was helping to keep the kingdom safe and protect the people who lived there. But as time went on, he started to realize that not everyone was happy with his abilities. People in the palace whispered behind his back, saying that Obinna couldn't be trusted. They resented him for knowing their secrets and revealing them to the king. Obinna felt lonely and isolated, like he didn't belong in this world of luxury and deceit. But no matter how hard things got, Obinna never forgot his mother. He missed her more than anything, and he wondered if she was okay without him. He hoped that she knew he was doing everything he could to make her proud. As days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months, Obinna's relationship with the king grew stronger. But deep down, he knew that his loyalty to the king came at a cost. He had to sacrifice his own happiness and his own morals to serve the king's ambitions. As the king's power grew, so did Obinna's sense of guilt. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was betraying his own people, his own family, by helping the king conquer neighboring kingdoms and eliminate his enemies. But try as he might, Obinna couldn't find a way to escape his fate. He was trapped in a world of luxury and deceit, forced to serve a king who cared more about power than about the people he ruled over. And as he lay awake at night, listening to the whispers of the palace around him, Obinna couldn't help but wonder if there was a way out of this tangled web of lies and betrayal. But for now, all he could do was to hold on to hope and pray that one day he would find his way back home to his beloved mother. Things were getting harder and harder for Obinna. Even though he helped the king with his visions, he started to see that his gift was causing a lot of trouble. No matter how much he tried to tell the king that he didn't want to see bad things happen anymore, the king just brushed him off. The king said that Obinna's gift was so important to waste, and that he had to keep using it to help him stay in power. Obinna didn't know what to do. He just wanted to make things right, but he didn't know how. He missed his mother more than ever, and he wished he could see her again. So, one day, Obinna gathered up all his courage and went to the king. He told the king that he wanted to see his mother, that he missed her and needed to make sure she was okay. But instead of listening to Obinna's plea, the king just laughed. He said that Obinna's mother was fine and that she was happy that he was helping the king. But Obinna didn't believe him. He knew that his mother will never be okay with him being so far away from her, and also he knew she would not be happy with what his gift had been converted into. So Obinna kept asking to see his mother. But each time the king just got angrier, and he said that if Obinna kept asking, he would make sure his mother suffered for it. Obinna was scared. He didn't want anything to happen to his mother, but he didn't know what else to do. The king had all the power, and Obinna was just a little boy caught in the middle of it all. And so, with a heavy heart, Obinna went back to his duties, knowing that he had to do what the king said if he wanted to keep his mother safe. But deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was betraying her and betraying himself with every vision he revealed. Meanwhile, back in the village, Adanna prayed every day for her son's safety. She could sense the darkness that surrounded him and could feel the weight of his burden pressing down on her from miles away. She missed her son more than words could say, and she longed to hold him in her arms again. But she knew she had to be strong for him, to keep praying and hoping that one day they would be reunited. Adanna's prayers grew stronger, her faith unwavering in the face of uncertainty, for she knew that no matter what trials lays ahead, the bond between a mother and a child could never be broken. Not by distance, not by fear, not by the darkness that threatened to consume them both. Obinna saw people suffering all around him. They were crying out in pain and anguish, their faces twisted in agony. Obinna felt a deep sense of sadness wash over him as he looked at them. But when he asked how he could help, they told him something that shook him to his core.
You are the cause of our pain.
They said, their voices filled with accusation. Your gift, your vision, has been nothing but suffering to those around you. Obinna woke up. His heart was pounding, and his breath came in short, rugged gasps. He had just had the most terrible dream. Obinna couldn't believe what he was hearing. He had always thought that his gift was a blessing, something to be used for good. Faced with the reality of his dream, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was somehow responsible for the pain and suffering he saw. Tears filled Obinna's eyes as he tried to make sense of it all. He questioned the true nature of his gift, wondering if it was a curse instead of a blessing. He wondered if he was meant to use his gift to help others, or if he was only causing more harm than good. As the first light of dawn began to creep through the window, Obinna lay awake in his bed, tormented by guilt and despair. He didn't know what to do or who to turn to for help. All he knew was that he had to find a way to make things right, to somehow undo the pain and suffering that his gift had caused. Obinna vowed to seek out the truth, to discover the true purpose of his gift and how he could use it to bring healing and redemption to those around him. But little did he know that the journey ahead would be filled with even more challenges and obstacles than he could ever imagine. The king wanted more and more from Obinna, and he didn't seem to care about how it was affecting him or his mother. Every day, the king would demand that Obinna use his gift to help him stay in power. He would threaten Obinna, saying that if he didn't do what he was told, something bad would happen to his mother. Obinna felt like he was trapped in a nightmare. He loved his mother more than anything in the world, and the thought of something happening to her filled him with dread. But he also knew that he couldn't keep betraying his own people, using his gift for the king's selfish purposes. One night, After another long day of serving the king, Obinna lay awake in his bed, thinking about what he should do. He couldn't go on like this, living in fear and guilt every day. He had to find a way to escape from the king's grip, to make things right and protect his mother at the same time. With a determined spirit and a heavy heart, Obinna began to plot his escape. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but he was willing to risk everything to save his mother and his people from the king's tyranny. First, Obinna started to gather information about the palace. He listened carefully to the servants as they went about their daily tasks, picking up bits and pieces of information that could help him in his plan. Then, he began to lay the groundwork for his escape. He found secret passages and hidden doors, mapping out the maze-like corridors of the palace in his mind. He knew that he would have to be clever and careful if he wanted to make it out unnoticed. But as the days passed and the pressure from the king mounted, Obinna's nerves began to fray. He couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't think about anything except the danger that surrounded him. Then, one night, as he lay awake in his bed, Obinna knew that it was time to make his move. With a silent prayer on his lips, he slipped out of his room and began to make his way through the darkened corridors of the palace. Obinna moved quickly and quietly, his heart pounding in his chest with each step he took. He knew that if he was caught, the consequences would be there. But he also knew that he couldn't let fear stop him from doing what was right. And so, with courage and determination, Obinna pressed on, his mind focused on one thing and one thing only: freedom. For he knew that no matter what danger lies ahead, he would do whatever it took to protect his mother and his people from the king's tyranny, even if it meant risking his own life in the process.